Welcome back. I know it's been a minute. Back to the 40K's most insane, powerful weapons, part 1 by Luetin. Shout out to Luetin if you want to take it on my video. I do not mind. But welcome back, ladies and gents. Sending out a lot of love. Today we are covering boom, or well, Luetin is, and I'm reacting to the Eldar weapons, the Eldar D weapons. I don't know what that means. But as always, leave videos I have to check out down below. I know the next video, when I come back to Warhammer stuff, will be the Iron Hands. Well, let me not exactly promise that, but I'm pretty sure it'll be the Iron Hands. I will get that done. Yeah, pushing through the whole voice thing, but who cares? I'm loving it. McDonald's. Anyways, let's just get in the video. Stop wasting time. Subscribe if you want. I upload every single day. If you got things or you want me to watch, send me. We're starting Frightening Friday, so if you got any Warhammer people, if you got any really scary no, horror stuff. It's got to be horror. If you think there's a story and Warhammer 40K that definitely deserves like a horror spot for a video, send it through for Frightening Fridays, because we're going to start that up. Anyways, with all that out the way, let's move on to the Eldar D weapon. Eldar Distortion. Okay, so that's what the D stands for.
Now, when coming to the second choice, I've opted for a Xenos choice with the most arrogant species in the galaxy, the Eldari, or the Eldar in our filthy low gothic tongue. Specifically Eldar D weapons, distortion or displacement cannons. The Eldar use various iterations for their range of weaponry. They're also referred to as Wraith Cannon because they're used by Eldar Wraith Guard and Wraith Knights. The D weapons of the Eldar are also one of those devices that do not walk the boundaries between lore and tabletop gaming very easily, because they are, similarly to the Mechanicus weapons, absolutely insane, but they do fit very well within the Eldar's advanced knowledge and incessant need to tinker with warp-based things. So just what are Eldar D weapons? Well, you will, I hope, remember my video discussing vortex grenades and in general vortex weapons. These are Imperium weapons that when thrown will tear a hole in real space, either shredding their enemy with gravitic power or dragging them into the warp itself, and all the horror that such a nightmarish fate entails. So keeping that as well as the Arc Mechanicus we just discussed in mind, Eldar D weapons basically fire vortex portals. They're actually fairly close to how the Dark Age STC uses its ancient weapons from the Arc Mechanicus, the difference being that the Eldar still use these regularly and also have made them basically infantry scale handheld rifles, which...
Okay, so for people who play the tabletop, how disgusting is that in tabletop? Wait, and like what, their bullets, the literal bullets are like miniature black holes? So what, you get, like, if I was to get shot here in the shoulder, it'd be a little fucking vacuous space and just like it'd be falling in on itself. Like, I get filled with little tiny black holes. It'd be like tearing you out from the inside.
Is completely insane. Now, given this, it's why I say that they are pretty hard to balance between lore and tabletop. Yeah. Because distortion weapons shoot a kind of beam or directed pulse that tears open reality at a focus point, and anything...
I'm not gonna lie, when I hear distortion weapons, I think of like, I don't think of literally like distortion of time and space. I think of like more like an espionage type weapon. Why am I even using the word espionage? I don't use it that much, so I have no idea. Espionage is just like spies and stuff, right? So I think of weapons, distortion weapons, kind of like just being used for distraction, not like literally distorting things itself. Because in a way, when you use a distortion, or well, if you use a distorting weapon, it would still be like a distraction, if that makes sense. If I'm like, I'm just trying to think about it. Like that, me messing up just messed me all up. But basically, you'd be distorting the person's perception. But this distortion is like distorting a person's soul.
Touched by or within that space should near enough then be torn to pieces by incomprehensible forces. Yeah. So its only real disadvantage is that it has a fairly short range.
This picture literally captures that.
The Eldar have seen fit to also mount some of these weapons on their versions of Titans, which you can imagine is truly a world-ending piece of weaponry.
Yes.
Imperial Void Shields, in theory, should not be able to even withstand this kind of weapon. The Mechanicus have tried time and time again to replicate this, usually in appropriately disastrous failure, either annihilating all around their test or unleashing nightmare demons into reality. So I like to imagine a secure room with shielding all around it, and there's some guardsmen inside being torn to pieces by Khorne bloodletters, as an impassive Mechanicus tech is just watching on with a small clipboard, checking off a box stating study 01623.
Damn, that went wrong. Oh, damn. Just like, guys, future reference, don't do this. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah.
Unsuccessful. Now, I hate to drag us out into the reality of the tabletop game, and I rarely see a situation that requires it or for me to discuss it, but please bear with me, because this is probably one of the best examples, and also primarily because D-weapons are one of those things that kind of really irk me, and I say this as a person owning an Eldar army, along with the mechanical design of old-style assault cannons, but that's really a whole other story. Now, let's be real, equating lore directly to board game rules is never something that people should really think about too hard or take too seriously.
True.
But I do, because I apparently like to frustrate the hell out of my brain. I think really, it's just a little bit of fun to think these things all the way through. So look, on the one hand, it seems an outrage that some weapons are not represented properly on the tabletop comparative to their lore descriptions. On the other hand, balance is a thing. You probably have a hard time finding a game with an army who are shooting basically black holes at your tanks. Now, I apologize.
Yeah, he's not wrong. There's so many other things that made me think about when you trouble your brain with stuff that you just should not try to draw like comparisons to. But I'm trying to think about I was gonna say an example of like anime and manga, but let me not do that.
Joseph, my voice changes here, but I decided to re-record this entire section because originally I'd done this very long-winded explanation about how the rules work in the tabletop game, and I thought, you know what, this is just nonsense. Nobody wants.
That's how it happens to me. I like if I do a commentary or something like that, I will re-record a whole section where I do this long-winded explanation because you like really care about it. So it's just like I totally am getting him here.
To hear this. The short version is that originally back in the 4th edition, the Eldar D weapons used to be more representative of how you would imagine a D weapon is, because it's firing vortex or sort of warp portal tears, alright? It would essentially, once it had hit, damage an enemy very easily, and then if you rolled a 6, it would be an instant kill, regardless of how many wounds they have, and wounds are basically a life force. A standard marine might have 1 or 2 wounds, characters are going to have more, obviously. Vehicles will have usually a lot more wounds. So the way these D weapons used to work makes a lot more sense, because if you get lucky, maybe if you hit it bang on, it's going to completely destroy that target. Now, yes, that is very, very powerful, but it is more representative, and you've still got to be pretty lucky to get that roll. However, quite a while back, they switched this around, and it's still relatively easy to deal damage with a D weapon, but it doesn't have that immense power that kind of connects with the lore, and now it is actually more comparable to Imperial melter weapons. They just have a little bit more range, and that to me just seems silly. You have these highly advanced nightmare weapons moderately comparable to weapons used by a Dark Age Tech Arc Mechanicus, yet in terms of stats on the tabletop, they're classed in the same category as what is basically pimped up Space Marine paint stripper guns. Therein lies the ruin.
I love how he said that. Pimped up paint stripper marine gun.
Nation of entertainment of lore versus rules and balance. There are many other examples with the single constant that the two things rarely align well. Now, I will also note that Dark Eldar use similarish tech weapons that are dubbed as Dark Light or Void weapons. They're equally destructive and can also be dropped in the form of bombs that are called Void Mines. They're a two-stage weapon that will create first a bubble shield around the dropped weapon, and then a dark particle of light detonates, creating a catastrophic implosion, destroying anything within. Most Drakari dark weapons work on a variation of this theme, and they are, as I said, fairly comparable to their Eldari counterparts. But Eldar D weapons are just another example of the completely mad, powerful weapons that exist within 40k, and that's fairly reasonable when you consider that the Eldar and the Necron have existed since essentially the beginning of time, so they're going to have this level of technology and understanding at this point in time.
Makes sense. That's what I like about the Necron. Okay, we will get to, well, Black Fortresses. We'll get to Blackstone Fortresses next. I don't know, I'm like really cut this up into parts, but nah, do I do it? You know what, we'll do Blackstone Fortresses too, cause why the heck not? I'm feeling like I gotta get that to y'all. So about the Eldar weapons, yeah, that's pretty cool. And I see where he was going with the whole tabletop thing. So they've basically been nerfed, and that sucks. And where I was gonna think of a kind of like a comparison to something that happens in is you could really think about it really is like certain adaptations to stuff. But yeah, that makes sense. So there was like that level of like if you rolled a 6, it actually fit the lore. Like you had to get lucky, and it like would completely one shot someone staying close to the lore, which yeah, and I can understand where. Well, I could understand where someone would be annoyed at that, like fighting against that. Imagine if you were just a really lucky person. I'd be feeling weird talking about certain topics because like I don't believe in luck. I believe in certain things are destined to be. So like it's just making it so weird to discuss. But yeah, that's badass. That's badass. I like the Elder weapons, Elder D weapons. But let's move on to the next one. Blackstone fortresses.
Then we come to Blackstone fortresses, which are to this day still something of an enigma. And this is because they originated millions of years ago during what was known roughly as the War in Heaven. And this was the war that...
Damn, seems like for the first... Well, it seems like... Okay, so I'm going to say for these first 3, these are all ancient weapons. Like the most insane and powerful weapons are the ancient weapons. That's pretty cool. But, what else did I want to say about that? No, I don't know. Never mind.
Started everything originally between the Old Ones and the Necron tier, and later the Old Ones, Eldar, Necron, and Catan. And there's a great deal that is very, very unclear about this time, as it was simply so long ago. Now, it is said that the Blackstone fortresses were known to the Eldar as the Talismans of Vol, and they were used as a powerful weapon during the War in Heaven against the Necron-Catan threat. However, I would note that this is, at least in my mind, quite questionable. There are large question marks over just what the Eldar during the War in Heaven were doing and what the Necron were doing. There is even some hints that at one point they cooperated against the greater enemy of the entities, the early stirrings of what would become chaos. Now, as I say, this time period is very, very clouded to us. The Eldar, although they were seemingly victorious, the Necron had vanquished also the Catan. So depending on which perspective of those events you take as well, and most notably is the fact that the material Blackstone is known to be able to either amplify warp energies or the exact opposite and nullify it. And the Necron tend to use Blackstone to this end, as they have no psychic ability and so seek to nullify it at every opportunity, and they continue to do this in the modern age of the Imperium. Whereas the Eldar have always had a very powerful connection to psychic power and warp energy. However, the Eldar do not display any working knowledge or use of Blackstone. It's not a material commonly used by them because they primarily use Wraithbone, which is generated from the warp energy itself. And so it's more reasonable to speculate that the Blackstone fortresses were in fact created at some earlier time, and that they may in fact have originated at the hands of the first race known to have inhabited the galaxy, known as the Old Ones. And this might help to explain why Blackstone fortresses can discharge powerful warp energy, which is known to be a very powerful weapon against the Necron. Yet also Blackstone fortresses display very little similarity with the Eldar. As I previously explored the nature of the Eldar gods, which is also extremely vague.
Was that gameplay footage?
There is one possibility that the Eldar gods originally were Old Ones sent to help and guide and marshal the Eldar in the right direction so that they might best aid the Old Ones in their war with the Necron. However, from the little we know about the relationship between the Eldar and the Old Ones, it soured over time. And so likely the Eldar adjusted their mythology to suit this, or projected it onto other entities within their own race, or they just forgot about it and it became distorted, as these old ancient tales often can. It's possible that there were in fact no Eldar gods at all, and that it's more like their fables designed to tell the tales, and the interpretation of their cultural nature of the old times help them carry forward and foster some sense of culture over the millennia. Regardless though,
sounds very familiar.
The point is that Blackstone Fortress's origins are very difficult to pinpoint even from a speculative point of view. What we can know is that they are extremely ancient, likely dating back to the earliest period of the galaxy. Some imperial dating has suggested that they were in fact not actually as old as suggested by the Eldar, which would lead us to believe that they were then created by some other unknown highly advanced race that is now long since extinct. I think this is quite easily disproven by the fact that it was discovered later that at the center of each Blackstone fortress was in fact a connecting portal to the webway. Now this certainly does suggest connection to obviously either the Eldar, but I think much more likely the Old Ones. Webway portals are not always exclusively related to the Eldar, but Blackstone fortresses have also been seen to use technology such as void shielding and inertialess propulsion, and this technology is not really used or connected to the Eldar. So it's strange because you have some elements which are Eldar-like, but
So wait, okay, so are like the Blackstone fortresses just literally fortresses out in the open that are like random encounters for anyone who's in space, or are they actually used by someone? Because I think just listening to all the information just completely just went over my head about who is using these or who is operating these things. Do these things just operate on their own? They're just kind of like out there? That's where like my mind just kind of like completely lost that.
there are others which are completely disconnected from them, and that kind of signifies that it's something else prior to them. So it's difficult to make any really solid conclusions as to who created the Blackstone fortresses or why, or how they tie in with any specific culture or mythology. The Old Ones are very shadowy figures to us, and we know almost nothing about them or the technology they utilized, beyond having some sense of psychic power.
So yeah, or like is there some Old Ones race or something still kicking inside the Blackstone fortresses, just shooting at things that drive by? Or is anyone able to take these down? I would imagine you have to get inside to take it down, so you'd be just better off running.
Created the proto-webway and were extremely advanced in their knowledge. They bested the Necron tier easily, and if we trust the mythical remnants of knowledge gained from the most ancient of history, it was only with the help of the Catan that the Necron were able to overcome them. So on the face of it, when all that we know about Blackstone fortresses are brought together, it does seem the most probable scenario that they were...
That answered my question then. Okay, so the Necrons and the Qatar overpowered the Blackstone fortresses, but not all of them, I assume?
The creations of the Old Ones. The fact that the Eldar did not see fit to then secure them later or use them in any way, despite referring to them as the talismans of Vol, suggests that they either held them with some kind of religious reverence, which again points towards them having deep cultural significance for them, but the fact that they didn't use them brings me to thinking that they actually were not aware of their power, or even maybe how to use them, or perhaps they simply feared them, believing them to be sacred places of their ancient gods. Who can say?
I feel like they know what they did.
The one thing though that we can be sure of is that they are some of the most powerful weapons ever created. Until recently, 6 Blackstone fortresses are known to have existed, yet these are now all believed to have been lost or destroyed. More recently, a 7th has emerged, and this further strengthens the belief that many others may still lie out there waiting to be discovered. It's entirely possible they're out there hidden, buried beneath a planet's surface, or have been reappropriated, with some world's inhabitants completely ignorant of their true nature.
Wait, so like they just, okay, so they're... Damn, I don't actually know how to comment on this. They're just kind of out there. That's cool, though. Okay.
The Imperium first discovered Blackstone fortresses quite late in their history during M33, and to the Imperium, these seemed to be nothing more than vast ancient spaceports of Xenos origin, so they were quickly secured and developed to be used as naval ports by the Imperium. Then later, during the Gothic War and the Black Crusades of Abaddon the Despoiler, their true purpose was revealed and their immense destructive capability demonstrated. It became clear that the forces of the Chaos Marines had somehow uncovered the nature of the Blackstone fortresses and were intent on securing these...
That's funny, because I thought they were shaped like the Chaos Undivided symbol.
...powerful weapon platforms for their own ends. Just how they managed to acquire this knowledge is perhaps more concerning than their ability to use them.
Well, I mean, if the Chaos Marines and stuff serve literal chaos gods, I'm pretty sure they have some knowledge of time or the beginning of time. So,
Howard, a Blackstone...
They're pretty sure they could reach back into that little schema of theirs and be like, oh, here, these are how those Blackstone fortresses work. Go ahead and wreak havoc.
Fortress unleashes immense beams of psychic warp energy, powerful enough to obliterate planets and destroy entire star systems. The individual
Blackstone branded exterminatus.
Power of a Blackstone fortress can then be linked with other fortresses to amplify and power an even more devastating beam of psychic energy. And Abaddon used this linked power to destroy the planet of Polaris 2 and then make the Tarantis star turn supernova. The despoiler would then also infamously use one of his acquired Blackstone
Abaddon.
fortresses as a massive kinetic meteor strike against the world of Cadia, which ultimately brought about its downfall, shattering the planet and destroying humanity's most powerful bastion against chaos and the Eye of Terror.
Wow. That's cool. Okay, next time we will come back to the Necron Celestial Ori. The Necron and the Eldar. Those are two of my favorite, I think, like factions or races in this. Necron and the Eldar. I like the older orders a little bit more. I want to learn a little bit more about them. But again, thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Sorry I didn't make too many comments. It was just kind of more listening. I'm always gonna apologize for that. But cool. So now we got Eldar distortion weapons and Blackstone fortresses. The Blackstone fortresses are cool. And I just caught, I noticed it in the beginning, but didn't want to say anything. I was like, oh, when they're kind of turning on each other, it kind of looks like the Chaos Undivided symbol when they turn a certain way. And then, or like when it's like the kind of like, you know what I'm talking about, kind of like crossing like this. But then the Eldar distortion weapons are insane. Imagine getting hit with a bunch of mini black holes. It's like, if you know the reference, it's like Fugitora from One Piece with the gravity devil fruit, and he's just literally, but he loads his ability into a gun. Couldn't imagine getting hit with vortex bullets, but I feel like it'd be a fast death. You know, kind of like, okay, I don't know why I'm thinking about this. You know, like you kind of get shot in the head, right? Bullet just goes to the brain, instant dead. Maybe sometimes, depending on if you're one of those people that survive a headshot. Good on them. That's insane. But like, imagine like a vortex bullet going through that, like a warp bullet. You're gone. You're gone. It's a quick death. If your consciousness is still around, you're probably witnessing. Oh god, this is horrible. I'm gone. Much love in Moonlight. What is happening to me in my brain? All this information I'm taking, and I think I'm just succumbing to the scarlet rot from Elden Ring. All right, I'll see y'all in the next one. Goodbye.